Hello everyone, and welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! This is a show where we review the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, the English dub, from a old fan and new fan's perspective. My name is Greg, and I'm the old fan.
My name is Joshua, and I'm the Yugi newbie.
And today we're discussing Episode 8, Everything's Relative. I don't even know what the title means yet. And the basic premise of this episode is that a kid is going around and stealing starships from other duelists and getting them disqualified. You find out it's Kaiba's little brother Mokuba who's trying to stop Yugi from entering into the castle and fighting Pegasus. Because if Pegasus beats Yugi in a duel, then he'll be able to gain control of Kaiba's company, Kaiba Corp. That's the basic premise of the episode. All right, Josh, what's the first thing that happens? Go.
So, like you said, we start off with panning on Pegasus' castle, and then we see this mysterious masked figure who is a little boy trying to escape off of the heights of the castle. He's tied his bedding together, the classic kind of escape route, and then makes his way down, ends up falling because he didn't have enough bedding to get all the way down, but he's fine because of the trees, and then he runs away. So there's definitely an intriguing way to start off the episode compared to the other previous episodes, which has been more kind of classic dueling. You can kind of tell right off the bat that this is going to be a bit more of a story or advancing the plot episode. Then after that, we go to Pegasus in the castle, and I like this scene with him. It's an interesting character moment where he is eating his gorgonzola cheese, I believe, and some delicious fruit juice. I like this because it starts off with this sinister laugh, and then they're like, oh no, he's just doing his evil laugh, but he's actually reading a comic book and just enjoying the comic book while he's eating.
Did you know the character in the beginning escaping the castle was Kaiba's brother, or did you just have no idea who this was? Because we've only seen Kaiba's brother once.
We did see him once in the first episode. I was kind of more letting the episode take it as it was going because I figured it would explain it. So no, not immediately. I kind of was just like, oh, interesting masked figure. There have been multiple mysterious figures, I guess. We haven't seen that other guy in a while who mysteriously has been popping up around the island. So I was just like, maybe this is someone from before that we know. Maybe it's not. We'll just see.
So you weren't you didn't just immediately go, oh, that's Kaiba's little sister, as you called Mokuba in the first episode. I'm calling back.
Yeah, sorry, I know.
I'm not offended. I thought that was adorable that you called him kind of his little sister.
He has a high-pitched voice.
When we finally get to the final Yu-Gi-Oh movie, Dark Side of Dimensions, I'm gonna have a lot to talk about that. So I can't wait to talk about that in 5 years.
All right, we'll postmark that. Yeah.
So to go back to the whole Pegasus thing, he asks for gorgonzola cheese, fruit juice, which is the world's finest wine, and a comic book. All things he already has, but he's asking for it as if he doesn't have them yet, which I thought was kind of funny.
Oh, you mean when Pegasus was mentioning it to the security officer guy?
Yeah, he's asking for more stuff of things he already has, but he asks for it as if he hasn't received his first helping yet, which I don't know. It just kind of stood out to me.
Oh, no, what I think he was commenting on what he was doing and saying having a good meal with good fruit juice and a good comic book. This is one of my favorite things to do, and you're interrupting this awesome moment I'm having right now. This better be important.
As soon as you started explaining it, right when you started talking, Josh, I realized what you were going to say and what the answer probably is. I still think he sounds like he's asking for more. No, he's asking for his first helping while he already has it, so I'm standing by that sort of, but I think you're right.
I get that, yeah. I think it can be confusing, but I kind of took it as I'm the same way when I'm eating a really good meal.
You're just enjoying something so good, and if someone interrupts you, you just announce what you were just announce the contents of what you're doing and just demand how dare you. That's really funny. I know you didn't exactly mean that, but that's really funny.
When my prisoners escaped when I'm eating my gorgonzola cheese,
Josh
Great.
When I'm playing Xbox and my mom interrupts me, I'm like, Gears of War 5 and apple juice.
Anyway.
All right. We've already blown up our mics for this episode.
But what I find interesting is we finally get more of the broad perspective of what's happening. We learn that 12 competitors have been eliminated already, in that he checks in on Yugi specifically, who currently has 5 star chips and he's making his way up. Pegasus once again says, oh yes, this is exactly what I want Yugi to be doing, and then he actually affirms he's happy that the mysterious prisoner escaped because this will lead exactly into his plan. So we have a pretty good setup for the episode and a bit more of the Pegasus Pegasus perspective, which we don't get too often, probably about like once every 3 episodes or so, I'd say.
You asked in like episode 4, I think, how many contestants there were, or at the very least, you were sort of like confused about how many people were supposed to be at this island. They still don't say it, but in the manga, they did say 40 contestants and 12 have been eliminated, and they say 12 have been eliminated in this episode. We can't take that as the show's answer because that's just in the manga.
That's fair. I'm still like a little confused on the rules because it feels like if that was the case, then at least like 4 competitors could still get 10 star chips and face Pegasus, but I don't know. No, wait, everyone has 2 though.
That's what I'm saying. Is the math would lead it to 8 finalists, but
yeah,
so
I mean,
right.
Someone could get more than 10 theoretically, but anyways, yeah, it doesn't matter that much. So now we get back to Yugi.
Yeah, Yugi and his friends are walking around, chilling out, and then they are met by Kimo, who's hassling a kid who's lost all his star chips, and the kid's shouting like, "I didn't lose my chips; they were stolen from me." Tristan tries to attack the guy. Did you notice any similarities between Tristan and the guard?
Their
Kimo?
hair is like the exact same, right?
Yes.
Is that important?
No, it's not. Nothing ever comes of it. Spoilers, but the joke is that they're lost father and son because they spike their hair exactly the same, which is kind of funny. I was just curious if you noticed at all. It's even funnier because, like, I think Joey or something calls him Spiky Head or whatever. It's like, dude, your best friend has the same exact haircut.
I like this because Tristan is usually kind of just really bumbling, or he doesn't really do anything that practical. But here he just goes off and like immediately like tries to punch or beat up this guy like immediately, which I thought was not necessarily out of character, but before he's always kind of he's been portrayed as more like wimpy or cartoonish, you know.
I'd say in this episode of the anime, Yugi's like more of the leader and like, let's go get this kid's star chips back. But in the manga, Joey is sort of acting like he's the leading force behind this, like trying to get this kid's star chips back. But he makes a joke twice, not even a joke. Like, I think he's serious. He references twice. Yeah, if we get your star chips back, then I'm going to keep half of them. So.
Because honestly, it didn't feel like it was like Yugi in this episode. It kind of felt like it was all of them just kind of, had this sense of morality to me.
Oh, sure, yeah. In the manga, though, Joey's the one who's like, yeah, we have to get the chips back. But at the same time, he's like saying, I'm going to keep half of them, though, which is not in this episode because I guess they thought if that was in the Japanese version, it made Joey look too scummy or whatever. So anyways, a wild Mokuba appears from the tall grass after they're staking out the crime scene where Mokuba originally stole the star chips. They still don't know it's Mokuba, but he just says, like, I want to duel Yugi and stuff like that. So then they start the duel, and then Tristan says, sometimes I don't think Yugi even knows what he's doing.
Yeah, which I'm confused because like, do they know how the Millennium Puzzle works, or like the Pharaoh takes him over?
I don't think so up to this point. That's what's kind of funny is that they're mostly chill with Yugi's transformations. Like no one really questions it that much. Like they notice that.
Yeah, I mean his voice is completely different, but maybe that's not like as noticeable in the world. I don't know, but still.
So let's talk about Mokuba a little bit as a character, from how we feel about him so far. I love Mokuba and Kaiba as a duo. Like they're my favorite characters. I think I adore their relationship because like Mokuba is so innocent in the show and Kaiba's so hardcore about everything.
No, I liked him so far, and he definitely feels like he has a sense of morality, trying to figure out what's best. Sometimes maybe like misguided, or honestly, we haven't explained everything fully, but I don't really know what would be the best course of action. But you can really tell that both Yugi and Mokuba are trying to act within their best interest to stop Pegasus, essentially.
I think Mokuba is mostly just acting to try to protect his brother's control of the company, something like that, and I think that that's all relatable. This Mokuba is very different in the manga. Okay. Up to this point, like everything that he does is pretty one-to-one for what happens in this episode and all that, like what Mokuba is literally doing. But where he's coming from in the manga is a very different place. So in the original 7 volumes, Mokuba is kind of introduced randomly. I mean, like every character is kind of introduced randomly, but my point is like when Mokuba is introduced, it's like a surprise. Oh, it's Kaiba's brother, and he's out for revenge against Yugi because Yugi embarrassed him by beating him in their first duel together. So Mokuba's out for revenge, and he's like a sadistic little kid. I don't know who's worse. I don't know who's a more violent sociopath between Kaiba or Mokuba. Just to make sure you understand this, they're both named Kaiba.
Kaiba's the last
right? Like, their last names.
Oh, they're both named. Wait,
yes,
Kaiba's the last name, right?
It's Mokuba, Kaiba, and Seto Kaiba. Just to put that on the table, but everybody just calls Seto Kaiba. So, God, what was I think their first interaction, or like Mokuba challenges Yugi in the original manga to play a like a capsule monster game with him or
What's
something like that.
Capsule Monsters?
You know, like those capsule toys that you can get in Japan, stuff like that. I mean, you can get them here too,
Yeah,
but they come
yeah,
from
yeah,
Japan. It's like a game you can do that like you open them up and then you get it's like a new piece you can
yeah.
use for a
Okay.
game or something like that. So they play that. I should have at least reviewed some of that to see like how messed up Mokuba gets, but I did just read the Kaiba Revenge Arc again. That begins with Mokuba inviting them over to their house, like the
Mhm.
Kaiba's mansion, and they play a game of like food roulette where two of the meals are poisoned or whatever. This is what Mokuba does to them.
Holy crap.
And Joey gets poisoned, and Yugi has to like find the antidote in another meal. This is all real. And then during the entire like Death Tea arc, let's call it, where Kaiba puts Yugi and his friends through this entire trial of games where you could die and stuff like that. What the second to last trial before Yugi faces Kaiba in the final Duel Monsters match is Mokuba and Yugi play another round of the Capsule
Mhm.
Monsters thing. And when Mokuba loses, Kaiba lets the holograms or whatever attack his brother, and like it's messing up with his mind and stuff like that. It's like destroying him mentally or whatever. Kaiba's allowing this to happen to Mokuba. And then Yugi pulls him out of it, and then Mokuba's like, "Oh, I'm thankful of you, Yugi." And then Mokuba like goes and helps his friends that have been left behind in the rest of Death Tea and stuff like that. So Mokuba's really messed up in the manga.
Apparently.
Here, they're mostly playing him as like the child innocence who's related to a hardcore psychopath gamer, and I feel Kaiba's definitely messed up in the first episode, but he's obviously going through like a redemption arc
Yeah.
right now with whatever Yugi did to his mind and stuff like that at the end of the first episode. So that's the background of Mokuba in the manga. It's insane.
Yeah, there's nothing like the show at all.
Yes, the show's a lot safer and cleaner, which is I'm fine with. It's funny in the manga, but man, it is.
I mean, it plays to a good dynamic. So yeah, it's definitely like is safer than what they did in the manga, but it still works in the show. It's not to say like, oh, it's super safe or boring. Like it creates an interesting dynamic that definitely works in this episode. I don't know how much he'll be in later episodes or not, but anyways, yeah, I'll just briefly go over the duel in quotation marks.
Quote unquote.
I just
duel,
like it because the dynamic of it is that Mokuba's like trash talking Yugi a little bit, and they're both just playing cards. And it's so simple because like Yugi's card, I guess, is just this dragon. It keeps just destroying his card. The biggest thing I took away from it was that like we haven't seen this dragon before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't seen this specific dragon in Yugi's deck.
This is the first card that Yugi used against Kaiba in their first duel. So we've seen Wing Dragon before.
Interesting. Okay, actually I like that too because he's playing the same way against both Kaibas. But yeah, it's I guess just like it still shows that one of like the lesser used cards is still in Yugi's deck is still a really good card, showing that like Yugi has a really good deck, which is an important thing to establish because if he's kind of like considered to be the best duelist active right now, besides perhaps like Pegasus, I guess. So it makes sense that he has to have a good deck. But anyways, yeah, he just keeps destroying the cards. And what's more important is the exposition we start getting from Mokuba here, which is very important information that really shows us a lot about Pegasus. Should I get into, or did you want to?
Well, what I want to say about the duel is that like they're trying to hit home this point that Mokuba's losing because he's using stolen cards, but the technical side of my brain just can't help but say he's also losing just because he keeps throwing out weaker monsters against the stronger monster. So
yeah,
but whatever, it's fine. It's what it is. I appreciate the message of anti-stealing, anti-theft. I appreciate the anti-theft message. Anyways, so yeah, we could just talk about the exposition. Even though it's getting a lot of exposition out of the way, I thought this is a pretty emotional episode because it's setting up Mokuba and stuff like that and Kaiba's relationship.
Yeah.
Like the abridged series and stuff has made criticism of how Kaiba's horrible for like abandoning Mokuba and stuff like that. To be fair, like his brain was altered by Yuki. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, his ignorance is innocence or anything like that, but like I don't exactly blame Kaiba for the decisions that he's made.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think Mokuba's trying to frame this as Yuki, you broke up my family, like you drove Kaiba away from me. I think he has a right to be angry about this.
No, I totally agree. I mean, like Yugi confronts Mokuba about it, and he's like, "Yeah, like I opened his mind," is the way he phrased it, which I think we kind of got before. Like I'm not sure that was new information or not. He said he removed like the dark parts of Kaiba, and then that left Kaiba feeling lost. So he was searching for himself.
I think I know what the metaphor is for this, and it's going to get really dark. Listener discretion is advised. How this actually plays to me now is a young child being separated from their parent who has been deemed unfit to care for them so that they can get like the rehabilitation they need or like get the help that they need so that eventually they can be reunited as a more healthy family. That's actually, I think, what this plays as. I don't know if that's what Takahashi or whoever was reaching for, but that's kind of how this is playing to me. Is like this is a family that is being torn apart for now, but it's so the irresponsible or possibly abusive parent can get the help they need. We obviously didn't see the relationship between Mokuba and Kaiba pre the mind crush.
Yeah.
You can imagine Kaiba was not treating Mokuba the best. He's such a sociopath with everybody that he interacts with.
No, you can definitely kind of imply that. There's definitely seems to be like a strong connection between the two just naturally.
And I don't think that there's anything wrong with Mokuba being as loyal as he is to his brother. I think that there is love from Kaiba's side for his little brother. It's just, this is like, he needs to go get help, and Mokuba, is going to have to be without him for a little bit. The problem with that, literal sense, or like in an actual how this is playing out, is that nobody's left to watch Mokuba. The kid would be put in foster care or something like that. But again, that's just, but Kaiba's already a 17-year-old or even a 15-year-old that's in charge of a multi-billion-dollar company. So what do you want? I'm just talking about the metaphor of the situation. That's how it plays. That's not going to be overt to a kid watching it, but I think that's definitely how it's playing. Subconsciously, that might have resonated with somebody who had been separated from their parental figure.
No, for sure.
Mokuba's anger is valid, and it's definitely like a separation that's probably going to be necessary for them to have a stronger, healthier relationship down the line. This is getting really serious.
Yeah, it's a serious episode, though.
Yeah.
Just to briefly go over, we learn of Pegasus's greater plans in that he's trying to take over Kaiba Corps. He's trying to merge the two companies and kind of create some sort of monopoly, essentially. And to do that, he's been asked to do a few important things. He's been asked to get rid of Seto Kaiba completely, kidnap Mokuba, which he does very quickly, because Mokuba's watching this, so that's how Yugi learns about all this. Mm-hmm. But then he gets captured immediately. And then he's asked to, I guess it's kind of unclear, but like they said, like that Yugi has destroyed the reputation of Kaiba Corps, so Pegasus is asked to beat Yugi in a duel. So I guess that's theoretically right now the motivation he has to fight him, so Pegasus can redeem Kaiba Corps' reputation by defeating Yugi or something.
That's what the board members want, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what Pegasus really wants, but that's what we know, which is definitely like more information than we had before. But still, I kind of like how Pegasus is a mysterious character. We still really don't know how he's pulling all the strings.
Pegasus also does say like, oh, what a coincidence, because plans for me to duel little Yugi are already underway. So like, obviously he also has his own motivation to want to duel Yugi before even this comes into play. It's more like a two birds with one stone thing.
Yeah, and then the other flash over, I guess, is to Seto Kaiba. Seto Kaiba is off. He's trying to figure things out, still figure himself out, figure out why he lost to Yugi. And then the two guards find him. He grabs his briefcase and jumps out a window and is presumably dead, because it's like this huge cliff that he jumps off of. But I think we all know that he's not dead. And then they steal Kaiba's deck.
Let's talk about Kaiba's contemplation for a little bit, because I feel like I just didn't have a brain when I was, younger, because like all this stuff to me that like never played to me right. Now I'm just looking at it more of like what things represent, as opposed to like demanding everything make perfect sense logically or whatever logic I'm demanding this show to have. Because Kaiba's contemplation totally makes sense to me in terms of what it represents now. It's almost like not a wish fulfillment thing, but like a fantasy version of the situation where like, what if a toxic person or an abuser had that hatred stomped out of their heart? They'd probably have to like think through some things again. Like they wouldn't just immediately be happy-go-lucky people. Not that and spoilers, Kaiba's not gonna become like a happy-go-lucky character ever or anything like that. I'm just saying, like,
I figured
when you have that hatefulness stomped out of your heart, you have to like sort of rethink your entire way of life. I thought that's actually affected me pretty well this time. I thought I liked this scene quite a bit, where he's like trying to understand, like he's like holding on to his old ways, even though he doesn't really have it in him anymore to do that. So like there's just this insecurity now, and he's just trying to understand the world again and himself.
Yeah, no, I think it plays well. Sadly, there was one moment when he was talking about like what he's doing. He says he runs computer simulations, probability scenarios, and quantum analysis of the duel with him and Yugi. And it's like, what does that even mean? Like a quantum analysis?
I know it sounds ridiculous, like literally what he's saying, but it's just speaking to like, this is a guy who used to believe in just cold, pure logic, and now he has to confront something about faith and the heart of the cards and stuff like that. You can't apprehend it at all. Yeah. I'm just making the distinction.
No, it didn't in any way ruin it.
Interestingly, I really do think this show is more about subtext than the literal meaning behind things. Oh, did you notice anything funny about the two mob guys or whatever that rushed in to assassinate him?
I don't think so. Besides the accents.
So they should have guns, and the guns are edited out, so they're just pointing at Kaiba. It's the greatest thing ever.
I mean, I just kind of figured, they're two big tough guys, they can handle him. But yeah, that's pretty funny. Is that in like localization, or
it's a censored thing? Yeah, in the Japanese version, the uncut English dub version, they'll have the guns. The best part is they have the guns and they shoot a bullet at Kaiba, and Kaiba deflects it with its briefcase. So we don't get that in this version, unfortunately. It's the best. It's the best thing. I love it so much.
I'll have to look that up
Yeah.
later.
And then yeah, I'll have to just bring it up. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge joke is don't move or we'll shoot you with our invisible guns.
Yeah, classic.
All right. So once we get back to the Duelist Kingdom Island and what's going on there, Yugi and Mokuba are trying to give the star chips back, and then Kimo just like slaps them out of Yugi's hand. Oh no, out of Mokuba's hand into the ocean. And then 2 of those star chips for Yugi because Yugi forgot to take his 2 back that Mokuba swiped. So now Yugi's down to 3 star chips again. Good. We can elongate this arc.
Yeah, I was thinking that, like, how convenient.
Yeah.
Yugi can keep winning, but he can't quite get to Pegasus.
Yeah.
I did have a question about that. So Mokuba, he steals the kid's star chips and his deck, but the kid says he hasn't even played a duel yet. How does the kid have 5 star chips? Or was he just saying
because in the manga he had 5 star chips and didn't say that line about not getting a chance to duel? Either it's just the 4 kids F up, or I think this always played to me as Mokuba's been stealing from multiple kids. So that's my answer.
I thought that too, but then it was like, does he have multiple decks, or I don't know.
I mean, after he stole 1 deck, he probably just could have been stealing star chips. That's easier in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, he would have definitely been making his rounds.
Yeah. The funny thing is, because the way that this is adapted to have the giant duel arenas, and then do you remember I told you in the manga, they're just little duel boxes where they're sitting at a normal table?
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense there that Mocha was able to steal the star chips, but like here he has to like run all the way around to get them.
Yeah, he's going everywhere.
When he does steal the star chips from Yuki, I noticed that they have this overly long filler joke when Joey's yelling like, "What do you mean? What do I mean? I wasn't talking to you, Joey," or whatever, and they're like arguing for a second.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, why? Like, even for Yu-Gi-Oh, like this feels like filler. I'm like, why are they shoving this in here? And then I realized, oh, it's because we need to give a believable amount of time for not only for the characters to be distracted, but for Mokuba to run around the stadium to get them. I thought about that way too hard, but like even for Yu-Gi-Oh, that joke felt forced, just like them arguing about like who was saying what.
Yeah, no, I totally noticed that too, because at that point Mokuba literally like leaves the podium and then goes to Yugi.
Once Taya makes his point, we see like Yugi's like watching them talk, and then he realizes, oh no, Mokuba's not there anymore. It was kind of funny. Another thing that they have to put in here to make the time lapse believable and everything is Yugi challenges Kimo to a duel to win back Mokuba, and then Kimo declines and says, "But I have another opponent for you." And then they show up to another stadium after waiting for 4 hours. I'm just like, okay, they literally just like stood around for 4 hours because no one's star chip count changed. Like no one had a duel in between. Whatever. And then what I realized is because we're going to introduce the ghost Kaiba or whatever, saying he's back from the dead to duel Yugi, I guess they just needed it to be 4 hours because it takes 4 hours believably to summon a ghost. I thought this was all pretty funny.
The guard knew like from the start. He's like, all right, I'm gonna summon my ghost buddy to fight you, Yugi, but I need 4 hours. Give me time to prep.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do find funny about that, I mean, that makes sense with you explaining it that way, but he says that we're waiting 4 hours, and then that happens in just like a split second. But what's really funny about that is that later in this same episode, they mention that all of the past events on the island, so everything since like episode 3 when they first arrived, has all happened in 6 hours.
Yeah.
So like it's crazy that time goes fast.
They spent 2 hours on their first 3 duels collectively, and then they just wasted 4 hours.
Yeah.
Waiting to meet Kimo again. Of course. Again, this is all nitpicking. This is not a problem with the show. It's just kind of funny. So yeah, Ghost Kaiba shows up. Josh, do you have any initial thoughts on Ghost Kaiba?
He looks evil. Sure does look evil. I think it's going to be entertaining because I can't remember if I have seen these episodes before. Like I'm getting tiny little like flashes of memory. I know I haven't seen much past this. If I have, it's going to be funny because I'm sure he's going to have Kaiba's actual deck.
Oh no, that's what it is. It's that they need us to believe that they could helicopter out the deck in 4 hours. It's like who cares? But yeah, that's actually.
But we don't.
That's actually the main thing I bet is that they need to. But you're right that event didn't have to actually be happening concurrently. But you know,
exactly.
This is me pointing out how they're trying to rationalize situations that no one's going to ask questions about.
Yeah, because you could just assume that like the event with Seto Kaiba being confined by the guards happened like 4 hours before Yugi were to fight this guard. Yeah. So
yeah, they're putting a lot of effort into explain things that nobody needs answers to. So Josh, do you recommend this episode?
I mean, I'm going to take a bit of a devil's advocate perspective here. I definitely recommend it. It is a very important episode. Like, you have to watch this episode as compared to the previous episode. But when I was thinking about it, I think I may have personally enjoyed the previous episode a little bit more, which is interesting because I imagine this is a much more memorable and like probably respected, I guess, episode because so much happens in it. We learn about Mokuba. We learn about a lot of backstory. But this episode felt more like kind of very like plot heavy exposition shove in the face, like plot dump. Whereas the previous episode was just very like, let's have some fun with Yu-Gi-Oh! and the world and the characters, and let's just have some good fun with like some heart to it. And I think that this show can do both of those types of episodes very well. Like I think this episode still was very well paced. It just kind of felt like it had a lot in it. And I think the other episode was kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh! At its best, or what I appreciate the most about it, where it's just having kind of fun, dumb fun, essentially. I think it's just interesting to kind of point out the two different like kinds of episodes. But I mean, I definitely still very much enjoy this episode and would very much recommend it, especially like if you are watching this for the plot and want to just get the bare bones facts, you have to watch this episode.
Yeah, I think I'll mostly agree with you. Just to remind listeners, the last episode was Attack from the Deep, when Yugi has his duel with Mako and stuff like that. And we both agreed that episode was inconsequential to the overall plot. The only thing it adds is Yugi gets an extra star chip. But we did think it at least added some like dimension to this universe, where we got a rival or slash opponent character that was actually like respectable and stuff like that, as opposed to another like bully or like scummy cheater and stuff like that. But what's weird about this episode is that like I think there's a lot of emotion in it from like Mokuba's story. And I think that there's obviously very crucial plot points being given, but at the same time it feels like that this is a pretty like thin episode. Like it doesn't feel like a ton happens in this episode for whatever reason. Not that I exactly want them to rush it along, but you almost could have had the first half of this episode just be the Mokuba stuff, and then we could have immediately gotten to the first half of the duel with the Ghost Kaiba and stuff like that. You could have done that. Maybe the pacing would have been compromised. This still feels like a really fast episode regardless. I think that's just the pacing of Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, like I kind of talked about, there is like padding with like some of the humor and stuff like that. Could have done that. I'm still going to recommend this. Obviously, I was very entertained by this episode, but just something about it felt a little thin. So I'll give that criticism. This definitely didn't feel like it needed to be an entire episode. Maybe everything is crucial here, but you could have cut some of this stuff down. Maybe there's like too much padding with Chemo and stuff like that, or Pegasus and his castle. But definitely another pretty good episode. It's more like technical stuff is bothering me, as opposed to like how I'm actually feeling watching the episode. How I'm actually feeling watching the episode is pretty strong. So yeah, another strong recommend.
No, I definitely agree with that. It just felt like kind of disjointed, like the start we were with Pegasus, learning more about this, and then suddenly we're here, and it was a bit all over the place. And sometimes it's nice to have episodes that feel very like fluid, and they can like go to a lot of different places. But this one kind of felt like it was jumping around a bit.
That's it. Another strong recommend for Yu-Gi-Oh! I can't wait till we get to an episode I don't recommend, because even last episode, which I was so confident going into it, I was going to give a not recommend. I gave a recommend, so...
Yeah, that's the problem. Keep recommending episodes. It's just the whole show.
Our listeners have to watch so much Yu-Gi-Oh! Now. It's terrible.
Yeah, sorry. Right. Watching a really good show.
You know what? I'm feeling like this is a really good show. Coming back to it and thinking about it critically, I'm appreciating this show more than I've ever appreciated in my life, and that's insane for me to think about.
Yeah, I think it's great. Anyways, thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks. Join us next time for episode 9. I forgot to write down the episode name. Yugi's going to duel Ghost Kaiba. It's going to be great.
All right, bye everyone.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a manga series originally created by manga artist and author Kazuki Takahashi, and originally published in Shonen Jump Magazine. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime was created by Gallop Company Limited, and the English dub primarily discussed in this podcast was produced by 4Kids Entertainment. This podcast is a non-profit media content, and created for entertainment purposes only. All rights of content discussed and music used go to their respective owners. We hope you'll join us next time.